Okay, we should be live now. What's up, guys? Happy Tuesday. Hopefully your day is off to a wonderful start. If you could, do me a big favor. Slide your finger over to the thumbs up button. Subscribe to this station if you are new to it. Hit the bell for notifications as we will be here breaking down Major League Baseball all season long. And we got ourselves another big slate today. Tuesdays are usually one of the bigger nights of the week, and this one will not disappoint you.
No, fun one tonight for sure.
Most definitely, guys. So, got a special deal for anybody today. The first two people who do this today, which is sign up for a monthly membership, you get you both sports right now. You get the rest of the NBA regular season, which will be done within the month, and you get the start of the NBA playoffs, which we do, not to toot our horns, but a wonderful job on, and you get the rest of the next month of baseball. $38 for the full month. That's all the write-ups. That's the Discord and everything like that. I will send you a $25 reimbursement for the first two people to do that today. So you get your first month for only $13.
Let's get it.
All right, let's talk pitching today. So we're going to go up top again and talk about an expensive pitcher, but he's not the most highly owned guy today. He's just the guy that we like the best. And that's going to be Max Scherzer of the Washington Nationals. Now, for my money, I think he's getting slept on a little bit within the baseball world and the DFS world right now. We're both monster Max Scherzer fans. And if you ask anybody who the best pitcher in baseball is, you don't get Max Scherzer anymore. But after giving up a bunch of solo home runs in his first start, he shut down the Dodgers. He's coming off two immaculate starts. I like him a lot. I consider the Toronto matchup pretty mediocre. But this is the kind of player, like, he transcends matchups. So, again, doesn't really matter to me. I like him a lot today. He's going to not be the chalk SP1. He won't be, like, low-owned, but he won't be the chalk SP1 today. So it gives you the reliability for a cash game starter, but not being uber chalk if you're trying to be a little different in GPPs.
Yeah, with Lucas Giolito, like $1,500 cheaper, he's getting all the love. Scherzer's coming in lower than he normally would be on basically any slate he's on, and not, it's not the best matchup in the world. It's not the worst matchup in the world. It's just a matchup, right? Toronto has power, but they can also strike out. Scherzer's one of those guys, like you said, he transcends matchups. I love him here. We are two of the biggest Scherzer guys in the industry, and especially coming in as not the highest pitcher on the board. Both like him a lot here.
Yeah, he wasn't great last year, but he wasn't bad. And I think just that weird, like, COVID-shortened season, that he lost a little bit of appeal in the eyes of many, but he's looked every bit the Max Scherzer that I know he is the last three starts.
Amen.
All right. So let's talk about today's cover boy, Fernando Tatis Jr. It was fun talking about him. So, it's kind of a side note. Like, I drafted this guy in, like, all my year-long fantasy leagues. And 2 weeks ago, I was like, man, this guy might be out for the year. I could have had Acuna, who's batting like 528 home runs already. Man, did I screw up. Well, then he just put a show on for the whole MLB public this weekend. Was nothing short of magical, sensational. He was amazing. He's great for the game of baseball, in my opinion. All that, coupled with a very fair price tag at $5,400 and going up against a starting pitcher who's had, struggles, to say the least, to start the year, you can expect Tatis to be crazy chalk today. I'm talking over 50% owning cash games by my guess. And this is a lot different than Odor for me yesterday. Like, we talked about Rougned Odor, and at 71% in cash games yesterday, he was even a little bit lower owned than I anticipated because he got bumped up to the cleanup spot. I thought he'd be more like 80. Either way, he was big popularity. Like, this one's different to me in the sense that, like, the price point's a lot different. You have to go ahead and plan around Tatis. But he's also really, 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 really good. I don't know about a lot of you guys, but I ended up putting Mike Trout in my cash game lineup yesterday because I knew he'd be popular. He's also really, really, really good. I think Tatis is more popular today and probably doesn't have quite the same career as Trout, but he's on that upward trajectory of being one of the game's best players, if not already one of the game's best players. I think he's a scary fade in GPPs because of how good he is and how well he's playing. So I'm still torn on him in the GPP mold, but an absolute cash game lock.
Yeah, well, first things, Mike Trout's definitely had the better career than Tatis.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't think anyone would argue that. That said, yeah, he looks like one of the top hitters on the slate. I'm not going to lie, though. When I first popped open the slate, I wasn't like, oh, my God, I need Tatis. I'm kind of surprised he's getting so much love with so many other good shortstops on the board. I mean, you got Corey Seager against an average righty. That's just one. You got Bogarts against the lefty. There's so many other guys. So I get locking him in cash games, but in tournaments, I mean, unless you're stacking the Padres, he's far from a must in my eyes.
Yeah, I can see that. So we kind of broke this one down too on members only. Like, what does Tatis need to do in order for it to be a must in GPPs? Well, it's different too. Like you talked about
It's
the
so
White Sox.
relative on what other shortstops do. You know what I mean?
Sure. But with 25 of them in play, like if you roll with Tim Anderson and he homers twice, well, then that's a great play. But like you need Tatis at high ownership to, you really need him to go for like 20 plus for him to be an absolute must because of his big salary. He changes your build if you went with a cheaper guy, for example. So on pure ownership alone, like it's a really interesting fade in GPPs. Also, Meryl Kelly's been bad to start the year, but I don't think he's god awful.
Yeah, like for me, I don't even look at it like a fade. If I'm stacking the Padres, of course I want Tatis. If I'm not, I mean, I want the shortstop like you mentioned, Tim Anderson, Corey Seager, Bogarts. I think all those guys are very similar plays to Tatis. And sure, Tatis can go off, because he's amazing and he's been awesome recently. But any one of those other guys or multiple of them can go off too. So I get why Tatis is the best play on paper, but I don't think he's like so far ahead of those guys where he deserves to be so chalky. Personally, maybe I'm wrong there.
After the monster weekend, like the recency bias on him is real. And because he's an elite player too, to like boot him with that one. The recency bias will be really, really real on this one. And that's where you get into an even more interesting conversation on him because it was obviously like this was a great series for baseball, right? Dodgers, Padres gave us some exciting games. Tatis was magical. I love how Trevor Bauer's like, I'm glad he's doing that because I think we need to add some excitement into the game. And it was just a great one. So all the recency bias right there, but maybe it's just like a get down spot for the Padres. You know what I mean? After a huge weekend, took the day off, and they don't have their A game today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, could definitely see them letting down here, kind of, the air out of the balloon after, back-to-back weekend series with the Dodgers. Not going to be surprised at all. Also won't be surprised to see them, get to Meryl Kelly here. I mean, he's not great. San Diego's really good. I get why they're getting love for sure.
Right, and the Padres hadn't been great to start the year, so it could be a springboard to like what we feel can be one of the best offenses in baseball. So I don't know. I was glad we could talk about him today because I think it's a super interesting conversation, not just for DFS and fantasy baseball, but in real life as well. So I think you lock him in cash games and then, draw a line in GPPs if you want to, play him in 1 of 3, do whatever you want to do with them. I just thought it was a really interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, I feel like in tournaments, there's so many good hitters on the slate. There'll hardly ever be musts in the GPP realm as far as hitters go because there's so many in play every day. That said, like Tatis is an awesome play. He's just going to be really high owned, so know that going in.
All right, next up, Nico Horner. So we'll see what the Cubs do with him today. He had a nice night last night. He batted leadoff. He's only 2,500. Javier Baez is day-to-day right now. If he's batting leadoff today, I don't care that he's got a relatively rough matchup. I love the $2,500 price tag and slide him in at second base and just move on.
Yeah, he's much better than this price tag implies. He's a good hitter. Again, he looked good in the leadoff spot yesterday. I see no reason why he wouldn't be back there again today. We have no idea. You mentioned Baez might be back. That said, they've been kind of switching things around, looking for a spark atop that lineup. Well, they had a good offensive game yesterday. Why fix what's not broken? He's even cheaper than he was last night. Cogging the machine. I mean, I don't think he's a must of all musts, but especially with expensive pitching we like, I think he looks good in all formats.
If he's leadoff again today, he'll be probably a little bit more popular than he was yesterday. I know he got some love yesterday, but 2 days in a row, even cheaper. Now, it's not an easy matchup, so it's not like a Cub stack day necessarily, but you can one-off guys when they're 2,500 and batting leadoff. There's nothing wrong with that.
For sure.
And also the last point too, like he loses some luster if he's batting like let's say 6 tonight.
Yeah,
that'll also cut into his ownership.
For sure.
Okay. Next up, wasn't sure where I wanted to go with cash game player number 2 after I had Tatis written up. It feels like 20 days ago at this point. Stanton, we talked about him before we got off of our members only video and what to think of him today. Knowing that he's coming in currently as the second highest owned outfielder projection wise, whether that ends up being that way or not, I think we could assume he'll be relatively popular. He's still only 4,700. We know that he hits left-handers with about as much power as anybody in the game. I don't know the numbers, but if it was just home runs per at bat against lefties, this guy's right at the top of the list. he's very affordable for what he offers at 4,700. Now, we bought him up twice recently. He gave us the O for donut once, and he double donged twice and helped people get really high up there in GPPs. It's kind of a little bit who Giancarlo Stanton can be. But one of the things we got into was you've watched a bunch of his at-bats, and it's actually encouraging that he's only striking out like once a game. When he's off, he's like a multiple K per guy type of hitter, and he's a very, very streaky player. So while the game log isn't like hot, it does mean a lot to me that like the strikeout totals aren't, asininely high.
Yeah, for sure. He's a guy we talk about a lot, very streaky. He's not necessarily streaking up right now, but he's certainly not like in a bad streak right now. And which kind of gets me thinking that maybe like the hot streak's coming sooner rather than later. We've seen this before with him multiple times. You mentioned it. He's just so cheap. You look at across the slate, even a guy like Aaron Judge, we prefer Stanton against lefties. Judge is $1,000 more. I think Stanton would be popular in the mid 5K range here. So at 4,700, I imagine he'll be one of the most popular players on the slate, and he deserves to be.
Yeah, the Yankees will probably get a little bit too much love again today, just like they did yesterday. We discussed the Yankees stack at nauseum yesterday. I feel like it was a third of our members only video. We had a couple of Yankees on this show, so I know we talked about him for a while. Stanton's a guy that if you want to stack the Yankees, you probably want a piece of him, but you can also use him as a one-off. Because this guy's fully capable of hitting 2 solo home runs every time he walks out on the diamond, but especially when it's against left-handed pitchers.
Definitely.
All right, last up, I'll let you just kind of take the reins on Jesse Winker.
So, yeah, man, like I don't think anyone's going to be on him because people aren't going to be wanting to pick on Walker Buehler, and for good reason. Walker Buehler is awesome. I'm not trying to stack the Reds here. But Winker, he has been really, really good to start the year. Specifically, he's been really good for his past, week or 2 weeks or so. Red hot right now. Was the only lefty in the lineup against Urias last night. Had the first, Reds hit, solid single up the middle. Then in extras, hit an Oppo Field homer off of Kenley Jensen. He's 2 for 9 with a bomb off Buehler, so I don't take too much of that, but it's not like Buehler has dominated him in their limited at-bats. He's going to be hitting at the top of the lineup. He's seeing the ball really well right now, and that's something we talked about in baseball. In no other sport do we care as much about how a player is playing like at this given moment. Winker is just on fire. He's really affordable. I love him in tournaments. Sure, he could definitely take an offer, and Walker Buehler could strike him out 3 times, but any hitter can take an offer, and Winker's going to be like 1% owned.
Oh, you brought up the BVP too, which is another bolt in the feather of Tatis tonight. He homered off of Meryl Kelly 3 times last year.
Yeah, he's got good BVP numbers for sure. I saw that.
I kind of forgot about that when I was writing that up, but that's another point for it. Yeah, baseball is interesting in that matter because with starting pitchers, it doesn't matter as much because they get 5 days off. In football, you don't really care as much about how a guy played, the couple of weeks before that because you get a week off between games. In baseball, it's so up and down. And yes, there are some matchups that you should be concerned about. You don't start hitters against Jacob deGrom. You do like to sack against bad pitchers. But every slate you break down, it's a bunch of there's 2 sides of the coin, right? Like it's kind of like more of a neutral matchup a lot of times. So we do care how guys are playing right now because anybody who's played baseball for an extended period of time can tell you. There are days and weeks and months where the ball looks like a grapefruit. And then there are other times, I remember playing, I caught a doubleheader in high school. And I got 8 plate appearances in this. And I went 0 for 5 with 5 Ks, which is probably as many strikeouts as I had the rest of the year. But for that day or stretch, just could not see the ball to save my life. And baseball's a weird mental game like that. When you're feeling it, everything you hit hard. And then you just go into these lulls where your timing is just off by half a second. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's all that matters for sure.
It's an interesting game. I love it. Always was my first love, and I love talking about it.
For sure.
All right, guys, good luck today. Go win yourself some of that cheddar. Click the thumbs up button. And for the next 2 guys who sign up for a monthly membership, get a $25 rebate.
Thanks, guys.